Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager. Well, mighty Joe, I'm hoping we got our mic situations sorted out and the audio comes through clear because, man, people have been upset. Apologize for that. I think we're a little bit away from some of the activity on campus up here in one of the southwest entrance of the USA. We have some good questions from Inside the Red Raiders subscribers, so let's dive right into them, mighty Joe. First one comes from Rue0302. He wants to know if James Blanchard was offered full autonomy by Notre Dame. And according to every report I've seen, mighty Joe, the answer is no. And right on cue, we got somebody jamming. That's just part of campus life. But no, I do not believe he got the green light, so to speak, and nowhere he wasn't offered in terms where he could just offer recruits anybody he likes. He's told me himself he does have the green light here. It's been reported by 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, and several other outlets that, he really does run the show when it comes to recruiting. Now, there's a lot of things that go together now with for at least for this past cycle with the Matador Club. Cody Campbell also interviewed him, and he said they were going to make a big investment in the transfer portal, and I think they kind of blew everybody's mind in terms of, including their own, how much success they had. And there's a good article in ESPN by Max Olson, who I've known for a long time, who wrote about just he obviously received great access and was able to talk to McGuire and Campbell and Blanchard about just, yes, the money, which was reportedly over $10 million invested in this transfer portal class alone, was a big part of it, but also the facilities, the staff, Blanchard and his staff's tireless work. So I think the truth is Notre Dame offered a lot. He went and checked it out. He did go visit there, all that, almost like a recruit on an official visit, and decided to stay here and continue what he's built here at Texas Tech. And I think there's been some very positive results, but I also think the fact that they've had to go so heavy in the portal this offseason to improve personnel also said they weren't quite there. Like the timing of getting some of these high school recruits they brought in, developed, didn't really mesh. Mighty Joe, what do you think about all that?
Yeah. It's, in football, you do have a little bit more of a developmental aspect of it than you do in basketball. With basketball, it's these days, if you're going to do it at the highest level, it's with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
In football, you have guys, high school guys, ideally, that you will develop in the system and sort of fill in with the transfer guys. The fact that you do go so heavily calls into question a little bit how that development is coming along. Maybe some of these high school guys are not as far along as they hope. You beat Notre Dame on a guy. That's not the easiest thing to do. That program's riding pretty high. They're always one of the most prominent programs in the country. So all in all, a pretty good result for Tech, I would say.
And I know people don't want to hear this, but this is my honest truth. And I like all the guys involved over there at the football facility. I really do. But putting that aside, is the jury's still out on if this works at the collegiate level or not. Blanchard and McGuire, this style of like an NFL GM front office where the coaches don't, they still recruit, all that, but in terms of the heavy bulk of the evaluations and who they're going to offer and all that is done by Blanchard, Brian Nance, was it Sean Kinney? There's some guy, there's more than just those figureheads, but all the tireless work they do, and they've done a good job, but it's got to translate, to ultimately getting to a Big 12 championship. And really, the way they've invested, it's got to translate this year. So there's a lot of pressure, and I know McGuire said all the right things, but it's going to be very interesting next year, because they do, despite on paper easy schedule, they have some tough road games, like Kansas State, even in West Virginia, you'd think would be a victory, but it's tough to play there. Arizona State, Utah, it's some tough games next year still on the schedule. So it's put up or shut up time for sure.
Yep.
All right, Elder Texan 79 wants to know, does the current basketball team embody Coach Grant McCaslin's style and what he wants? I would say yes. They went out and got talented offensive players, right? And now it's his job to get him to play defense. That's my short answer, Joe.
I would say yes and no. Yes, from the standpoint of you at least he says that he really loves the intangibles about this team.
Yeah.
You know, the heart and the grit and the scrappiness and the ability to find a way to win in difficult situations and so forth and so on. They always scrap and claw, and he really likes that, and I think that embodies what he wants in a team. But on the other hand, you know, he's a defensive-minded coach, and this is an inconsistent defensive team. Clearly, they're not where he wants them to be defensively.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure things out, and it's getting a little bit late in the game to be figuring out what you can and can't do defensively. So in that regard, I think they've still got a ways to go from, you know, getting to where he wants it to be with his style of program.
Yeah, I agree. I think he even said Tuesday before the game was ahead of their victory over Arizona State that they have to get more physical and have a better presence around the rim and the paint specifically. And I think he meant on both ends of the court, but I think he, you know, was focusing on defense. But I think just based on what he said, I even asked him a couple questions about building a roster, just kind of what you said, Joe. But that he wants the talented offensive players, and he's like, hey, I could coach them up defensively. You can only do so much with a certain amount of talent, you know. So I think that's what they're trying to do this year. Now maybe they change it next year. They're definitely going year to year. He said himself, they're focusing on the season, and then they'll look at the roster after the season's over. So they're not. It's very different the way the football and basketball teams are going for. That's not to say they're not recruiting still. Kellen Buffington, the basketball GM is, but it is definitely a different thing in terms of the way basketball and football is going about roster building. Red Raider K wants to know, I feel like we get this question a lot, but I don't mind answering because I think it's a good question and it's a good answer. It's fun to say this. But what is the ceiling for this team, Money Jeff, this basketball team?
Yeah. You know, you asked me that question last week. I gave one answer. Give you an answer this week. That's another one. And the next week I may give you another one.
Right.
Because you're always incorporating the newest information.
Right.
Which is wins and losses, games played. But, you know, right now I would say probably Elite Eight is what I'm looking at.
No more Final Four, huh?
Well, you know, it's going to depend. You know, I mentioned this in another video. Texas Tech seems to go through cycles defensively. Early in the year, they were not very good defensively, and Grant McCaslin said as much. And they had to get better. And then they had a stretch where they went to Utah.
Yes.
And then for about 6 or 7 games thereafter, they were really, really good defensively. I mean, routinely holding Big 12 teams under 60 points per game. And it looked like they got things figured out and they were rolling defensively. But then these last 4 games, 3 of the last 4, they've just not been very good defensively again. So they're up, down, up, down, up, down. And so, you know, assuming they get to the big dance, which seems highly probable, are they going to be on a defensive uptick or are they going to be on a defensive decline? That's going to be a huge factor. Also, matchups, you know, I mean, who do you draw? If you run into a really, really lethal offensive team, you know, early in the tournament, then it could be a short tournament for Texas Tech. So, on the other hand, if not, you could go a long way. So, but right now, I'm kind of hedging my bets. I'm saying Elite Eight.
All right. TWLDS Raider wants to know if we have any idea on how good the baseball team could be. That's a very good question, honestly. Was at the media availability earlier this week previewing the season with Tim Tadlock. And, you know, I mean, they have 25 newcomers on this team. They're top 5 preseason Big 12 for whatever you want to put into the media poll, which seems to be wrong in every sport, you know, the preseason media polls for the Big 12. But, you know, 25 guys, I mean, I guess it's like that in every sport now, the roster turnover. Tech's opening the season at number 6, North Carolina. They're going to be playing a lot of games on the road this year. They've stepped up their competition in terms of non-conference, although Tadlock's never been afraid to play anybody. But a lot of road games, like I said. You know, they brought in some good hitters, so even from like the junior college ranks, some nice transfers, but I can't sit here and say, oh, I think this team could win the Big 12. And I don't even think Tim Tadlock, and asking him, he could tell you that. He feels confident about some of the pieces they've added. He also said he feels like last year was last year in terms of their struggles on the road. He feels like they'll be better this year, but they got to go out and do it. So, you know, I think it remains to be seen. I think there's a lot of questions around the baseball program considering the struggles they had last year and that it's been a while since you've had those monster seasons. But it's definitely going to be interesting from that standpoint of is this a bounce back year for the baseball program or not? Nas Raider wants to know, and I'm really curious to see what you think about this, Joe. Have college enrollments peaked, and what are the possible effects on sports?
Well, ever since I've been involved or invested in the stock market at all, which is 2009, I've been hearing everybody say the stock market's going to crash. There's a bubble. It's going to pop. Everything. Get out, run for the hills, build a shelter up on a mountain somewhere,
right.
And it doesn't happen, And similarly, I mean, probably for the last 20 years, I've been hearing about an academic bubble where enrollments have peaked, it's going to burst, and then, college enrollments are going to crater and so forth and so on. I've been hearing it. It really hasn't happened. Now, I don't know what the numbers look like, but I don't see any major decrease, generally speaking, in enrollments. On the other hand, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the growth levels off a little bit, flattens out, even plateaus. I mean, cost of college education continues to shoot through the roof, and the dividends of having a college degree aren't quite so strong as they once were. So that is going to dissuade some people from going to college. On the other hand, as long as businesses continue to use college degrees as the sort of baseline requirement to even apply for jobs, academia is not going to suffer too much for customers. So it's kind of the way I see that. In terms of if you did have a decline, would it hurt college athletics? I don't think it would have much of an impact at all, because more and more we're seeing academic or athletic departments slowly sort of become independent.
Right.
Their whole identity kind of separates. I mean, you see from the university, you see this with schools like SMU putting Dallas on their jerseys.
Right.
Houston with their Houston Oilers uniforms, UCF with these space games and so forth and so on for Cape Canaveral. The identity is becoming more of the city and the region, less the university. And on top of that, the money that goes into these programs now is more external. I mean, the Fat Cat alumni and so forth and so on are far more important right now, I think, than enrollment figures. Yeah. So were there to be some sort of a major crash in academia, all I think you would see would happen, you see the formalization of the independence of college athletics from the universities themselves. The professionalization of it would become formalized. But again, I think this is kind of by the boards, because I just don't see that collapse happening.
I agree. I think it's actually the other way. I think sports affects the enrollment numbers, because, I mean, Kirby Hocutt told me himself, like, when we were in Minneapolis, I interviewed him, and he said, look, I mean, we've had record applicants, and he said after the national championship game appearance, that it was like a record number of applicants and all that. And I think Tech, earlier this fall, in 2024 fall, I think the enrollment was over 41,000. So that seems like a lot to me. I mean, I don't know what it was like when you came here, but it was like 25 when I was here, which was, I'm a gray beard, we're older, but still, I think it's a good question. But I think sports, and I've had these conversations with several people here at Texas Tech who have said this, not just sports people, that's one of the reasons they are so invested. They're so into it, because they see a difference in the bottom line in terms of people wanting to come here when Tech does well in sports. So, I mean, what if Tech went to the playoffs in football? What would that do? I think they'd get a boost in applicants trying to get into Texas Tech.
Sure.
All right, speaking of Kirby Hocutt, next question comes from Saddle Trump, who says he read in the Dallas Morning News that Kirby Hocutt was a possible candidate to go to SMU. Look, I have learned the hard way, and I've always been kind of cynical anyways, or have been for a long time, never say never. But, I mean, now more than ever, never say never. But I don't think so. I think Hocutt, his next job will be something else, I think, other than an athletic director. That's just my humble opinion. He's put a lot of work into upgrading the facilities, this athletic department. There's a lot of things going well, a lot of programs going well. Exciting time for the football program next year, with a big opportunity to have a great season. So no, I really don't believe that Kirby Hocutt would leave for SMU right now, but never say never. TTU Braves Rock, wants to know, this is a Mighty Joe question. What's the most important game left on the basketball schedule?
All of them. You know, I mean, that's what the coach would tell you. I mean,
The next one.
the next one,
Yeah.
the next one on the schedule is the most important, and it's true in a respect. You can say, well, okay, obviously Kansas and Houston; these are the marquee games coming up. It would really help you in terms of like the net ratings, and particularly the Houston game. If you knock them off, giving you a shot at winning the Big 12 title. That's true, but what if you turn around and lose to Colorado here? You know, what if you lose to Arizona State on the road, or this upcoming game against Oklahoma State that negates what you may have accomplished there? So the big wins surely help you a great deal, but bad losses can hurt you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're all important. I would just say this, however, in terms of winning a title, obviously it helps you a great deal to beat a team that's ahead of you in the standings.
Right.
Houston is ahead of Texas Tech, Arizona as well. Tech doesn't play Arizona again.
Mm-hmm.
So beating Houston, could help you with regards to the Big 12 title. But that's the only thing that might give that game a slight edge. But I mean, really, they're all just, you don't want to lose any of them. You want to win them.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, both in terms of the cliche, that's true for a reason, you know, like you got to back them up, even if you get a big win, and that Houston makes sense. But something about the historical aspect of possibly beating Kansas and Lawrence also, to me, like I'll remember that. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of fans remember that. So I think clearly that's a really important game as well. But
they've only done it once. Tech has only won there once.
Was that 2019?
It was 2018, actually.
18.
Yes.
Okay, I knew it was right around there.
Yep.
All right. Well, Mighty Joe, man, great stuff from you as always. Thank you all for all your questions. Thank you for watching, and until next time.